Hi, my name is Joshua Young, and today I'm going to do my ROTD on the topic housing for the article Challenges to Achieving New York City's Affordable Housing Goals by Andrea Mercado. So, this is the agenda for today. So, starting with the author, Andrea Mercado is a professor of law at City University of New York, which she also taught at New York University. She usually publishes articles that are at the intersection of law, rhetoric, narrative, urban land use, and community studies. She wrote the article in May 1st, 2016. So for the article, it gives insights on current issues for the plan of zoning affordable housing in New York City, and then concludes by suggesting ways which affordable housing might be pursued. It is divided up into two main sections. The first section addresses the obstacles New York City faced when it first introduced and promoted zoning for affordable housing, as well as how the subsidy tax law affected developers' choice for building houses. The second section addresses the apparent tension between the city's affordable housing plans and related neighborhood preservation efforts with the policy's goal for fair housing laws. For the past few years, New York City has seen growth in affordable housing. As seen to the map on the right, this is a map for affordable housing in New York City, and we can see the houses are focused in Bronx and Brooklyn. And back when the paper was written in 2016, goals were to include 200K affordable units over the 10-year period, so until 2026. The city selected 50 neighborhoods across the city's 5 boroughs for rezoning houses. The MIH, or Mandatory Inclusion Housing, and ZQA, or Zoning for Quality Affordability, are the two main initiatives that make up the housing plan of having affordable housing. So the initial plan received huge opposition. In late 2015, all of the 5 city borough boards and 59 community boards said that they did not like the proposal from MIH. So more about the plan. The plan had 3 different options. The first option is to have at least 25% of the land area reserved for the average of people with 60% area median income. The second one is having at least 30% of the area for 80% area median income people. And the third option is conjuring with the first two plans and allowing 30% of the households to have area median income of 120%. So after the 3 options were listed, there were still many concerns from the public. Most thought that the housing prices were still too high and the prices were not in match with the income level for many neighborhood residents. They were also in objection that upzoning changes would significantly alter low density neighborhoods. So from the concerns from the public, City Council members negotiated with the de Blasio administration and revised the 3 options for affordable housing. So the new model developed was based off on the old one. However, they increased the amount of affordable housing to even more lower average median income groups. So in addition to increasing the reach of affordability by low-income people, the modifications also supplied a measure of flexibility and potential for local tailoring. Now, moving on to the next section, I'm going to talk about how the state government affected affordable housing and how it creates additional obstacles for housing. Affordable housing under MIH was expecting developments of projects to be below market rate units. However, from the 3 options mentioned from the previous slide, we were all assuming that the government provided subsidy to the developers, which for developers was an incentive for them to commit the project. Section 421 here is a New York real estate property tax law that is no longer available because it was expired in 2015 June. Although it was later extended to January 2016, but it was also expired later. Housing advocates, developers, local officials say that the failure to reenact to the policy as an obstacle for MIH to go on. In addition, there was an announcement about the expansion of governor administration in sponsoring affordable housing. By doing this will limit the share of federal tax exempt bonds, which was previously available for housing developments. These bonds are critical to lowering the cost of borrowing funds and serve as a huge leverage for gaining access to federal tax credits for affordable housing projects. So without this, prices of houses would be slightly higher. While these developments threaten to slow down the city's construction goals for affordable housing, the city faces persistent community concerns about the adequacy of city support for the existing neighborhoods as higher density development continues to rise. So, in response to the concerns, the City Council promised to invest in affordable housing strategies in both economically and physically. The efforts includes working with the Tenant Harassment Prevention Task Force by providing free legal services to tenants facing any sort of harassment. So, in conjunction with the economic improvements that what we just talked about, the de Blasio administration also mentioned that in addition to these benefits, there's gonna be new schools, parks, and better streets, which serves as evidence to the commitment in neighborhood preservation. So in this section, we're going to talk about community benefit-based policies and some drawbacks from the policy. As a community benefit-based approach to the distribution of affordable housing resources, the city's community preference policy has offered another discrete strategy policy which only supported the local neighborhood residents. The policy is as written here. Local residents many of whom have deep roots in the community and have preserved through years of unfavorable living conditions, are able to remain in neighborhoods as those neighborhoods are revitalized. The city frames the policy as one that preserves the community against any displacement pressures. However, the same policy meant different for other city residents not from the neighborhood. The policy supports unequal access to community preference affected affordable housing projects, which leads to many further problems. For example, it can cause impairs in residential mobility, as not many people would move away from their current household and not many people would come into the neighborhood. And the policy also reinforces racial segregation. Although implementing these affordability and anti-gentrification goals support the value of maintaining income and socioeconomic diversity within the city's neighborhood, it is not compatible with the pro-integrative policy of the Federal Fair Housing Act and provisions of the city's own human rights laws. So in this section, we're going to discuss the author Mercado's solution in response to previous problems for providing affordable housing that were contradictory with each other, such as community benefit-based policy and displacement problems from the local neighborhoods, which one problem was against the other. The way Mercado proposed was for the city to increase neighborhood stabilization enhancements. This was a sort of win-win type of proposal. By having multiple anti-displacement actions and also opening up to affordable housing lottery across the city could pursue its goals of strengthening access to housing. And so by doing this, would support the people in the neighborhoods and also promote a sense of integration in the community. And this process can include many anti-displacement policies that use tax laws provisions to influence the consequences for using housing as an investment, such as taxing landlords who offer lease to tenants without rent stabilization protection, also raising the transfer tax on all transfers of properties that are used as investments. Mercado also mentioned that the New York City's Department of Housing Preservation and Development can provide additional actions to protect neighborhood people that are in danger to displacement pressures, such as denying the finance of housing projects where developers have violated rent protection laws, and also such as seeking for anti-harassment legislation would require housing owners of multi-family buildings to obtain no harassment certification before applying for any modification to the structures of the properties. So these policies pretty much ensure residents to not get displaced right away from their neighborhoods. And so for conclusion and the future, as New York City continues with the MIH implementation, it is going to face continued concerns about affordability and gentrification from the public. The fair housing implications from community preference policies complicate the city's affordable housing objectives. And overall, I agree with Mercado. I believe that housing should be open to anyone in the city without any local preferences. With this inclusive approach, the affordability and anti gentrification goals from the administration would be achieved very soon. And 10 years from where the paper was written, which is 2026, we should see a massive improvement from housing as compared to 2016. So these are my citations, and thank you for listening.